Hi, so this video is going to be a guide on how you can talk to your BPD loved one, particularly when they're splitting, and a few ways you can build trust with them so that you can avoid those huge arguments that you tend to have. These huge arguments look like they are lashing out at you and like they are accusing you of something that may or may not be true. And while you're trying to get them to see your point of view so that they can understand that you didn't mean to hurt them, this only leads them to blow up even more. As a loved one of a borderline, you support us a lot by understanding what exactly a BPD episode is and what exactly splitting is. Splitting is more than just what's defined on Google as, seeing things in black and white. When we're experiencing splitting, we're having a cognitive distortion that something is all bad, and that kind of trickles into how we see ourselves and any prospects that we had. Say we were looking forward to a project, or we were looking forward to completing an assignment for school, or just like doing something with our personal goals. All of that goes out the window when we're experiencing a BPD episode. And that's because the thing that upset us has to do with you. We feel like you don't love us, or you don't value us, or maybe that you never found us to be an important part of your life to begin with, which can trigger feelings of rejection, because if you're close to us, you're one of the few people that we trust. And that trust feels like it didn't exist. It suddenly turns our world upside down because we feel like we're inherently unlovable if this one relationship doesn't work out. Now, we're not in the right state of mind to explain all of this to you because we're also not conscious that we're dealing with shame and sadness. We're only conscious of the feeling of anger because we feel the betrayal and we wonder how you could do this to us. So it's important that you know that we're experiencing this and that you're able to be compassionate. I know that it's hard if we're attacking you and being hurtful. So my first piece of advice is to set a boundary and let us know that you can't continue the conversation until we've calmed down. Ways that you can phrase this without triggering us into feeling abandoned is by saying, I really want to be with you and I'm going to continue to stay here with you, but I'm having a hard time with this conversation and finding a solution because you're saying hurtful things, and those hurtful things are hurting my feelings, making it hard for me to concentrate on what we can do to fix this. I'm an advocate of not using your mental illness as an excuse to treat people bad. So it's important that you set this boundary so that you aren't walking on eggshells, you're not being a doormat to them. The reason why being a doormat is terrible is because in the long run, it shows them that it's okay for them to be impulsive and take their anger out on you when you may not even deserve it. So by sticking up for yourself, you're also advocating for them to be better. You're showing them that there's a different way that they can communicate, and this different way that they can communicate will actually get them what they want, which all they want is to get rid of this feeling based off of the belief that you don't care about them anymore. The next thing to remember is stop trying to win the argument. Like I said, you can't hurl logic at them right now because they're experiencing more than a mood swing, they're experiencing cognitive distortion, and this is a mental handicap. They're not thinking logically like they normally would, and trying to get them to see your point of view is just not going to work right now. But they do deserve to hear your truth, and you deserve to tell your truth. So save the points that you want to say during this argument for when they're calmer and when they're no longer splitting and having this episode. When they calm down a little bit, now is the time to talk to them. To remember to do this, think of the phrase, strike when the iron is cold. You can remember that when the iron is hot, you can associate that with them being angry and splitting and not being their regular selves. So striking when the iron is cold is talking to them when they're not bothered, not having an episode, and when they're more inclined to empathize with you. So you'll notice that approaching your BPD loved one has a lot to do with timing and the way that you phrase things. Now that you know to approach them when the iron is cold, You can phrase things in this way. First, start out with talking to them about their trigger. Let them know that you've observed that they get triggered when they experience this, this, and that. Try to be very factual with the sentence so that you're not accusing them of being overly sensitive, or that you're not accusing them of being dramatic, because we're very insecure about that. Then you want to get into how you feel. Talk about how the fighting makes you feel. Let them know that when you guys fight, you start to feel distant and that makes you sad, something along those lines, because that will open up a conversation for vulnerabilities. But personally, I can only do that when the other person is also admitting that they have sensitivities. I hate feeling like I'm the only one that is sensitive, and as somebody with BPD, that's a constant fear, is that someone's going to find out that I'm just this sensitive little baby and that I can't control my emotions. So by leading with your emotion, you're showing them that this is a safe space for them to admit things that they are afraid of showing anybody. And it's important to have these conversations regularly, not just when there's a fight or an argument, but to have them just because, so that you build trust with them over time. It's about building rapport and getting them to realize that they can behave differently when they're triggered. They don't have to go back to cutting. They don't have to go back to lashing out at the people closest to them. And they don't have to beat themselves up and let that shame consume them. So the goal here is to build trust with them, build rapport with them, and don't let fighting be the only reason why you have these deep dive conversations. The reason why this works is because they will become more cognizant of their triggers when they occur, now that they have somebody in their corner that they can talk to about the switch that goes on when they're splitting. They can learn to see these emotions in a different way and learn to label them as well as distance from them. They'll find different ways to cope, and one of those ways will be to vent to you instead of keeping this all inside. It's really up to them to put in the work to get better, but as somebody who's supporting them, you can do your best by really understanding what goes on when they're experiencing an episode. So I hope this video helps, and if you want me to make another video, please send me some requests through my email, karmavice87@gmail.com. Okay guys, see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.